Hi. Hello. I wanted to go back to our video. So I've got the camera set up and I'm going to be reading, okay? I love you, Jay. I love you, Jamina. Oh, I went to the PTA meeting at your school tonight, Jamina. Granny and I did. And the reading teacher was talking about how even into high school it's good to have your parents read aloud to you. It's just a good way of retaining information or enjoyable sort of thing to do. So I want to finish up Ghouls Don't Eat Ice Cream and then go over to the book that Jalen's having read aloud to her at school, Fuzzy Mud. But I'm going to go back and finish up Ghouls Don't Scoop Ice Cream, okay? Here we go. Where we left off, Eddie had ran over to the counter and slid behind it. He had a big spoon in his hand when Scout came out. "What are you doing?" Scout asked. Her pale skin and red eyes made Eddie wish he'd never heard of ghouls. Eddie was scared, but he never let on. "I wanted to ask you a question," Eddie said. Liza slid down in her seat, closed her eyes. "Oh, no, we're dead. He's going to ask her if she's a ghoul." Melody squeezed her cup and shook her head. "No, Eddie's not that crazy." "Yes, he is," Howie said sadly. "Let's get out of here before it's too late," Liza said. She ran up to Eddie and pulled his arm. "Come on," she said. "We have to go." "Not yet," Eddie said firmly. "Come on," Melody said. Melody, Howie, and Liza all grabbed Eddie and started pulling. Eddie jerked his arms away and faced Scout. Her red eyes beamed down on him from behind her dark blue hood, and her tape recorder hung from the belt of her sweatsuit. "What's the name of the family you work for?" Scout touched the tape recorder at her belt. "It's a secret," she said in her hollow voice. Eddie tried another question. "What kind of house do they want?" "A stone dwelling with no windows and no neighbors," Scout said. "Like a cave?" Melody blurted out. Scout's red eyes seemed to glow as she stared at Melody. "Exactly," she said. But she didn't smile when she said it. "That sounds like Ruby Cave," Eddie said without thinking. Ruby Cave cut deep into nearby Ruby Mountain. Few people were brave enough to explore its many caverns, but Eddie had always wanted to try. "Shh," Liza said and slapped her hand over Eddie's mouth. Scout reached toward Eddie, but Liza didn't give her a chance to get him. This time she pulled Eddie. She pulled him hard. "Run!" she screamed. The four friends didn't slow down until they reached the cemetery. "I can't run another step," Liza panted. "I think we're safe now," Melody said. Eddie kicked at the iron fence surrounding the cemetery. "I don't understand why we were running in the first place," he said. "We were saving you from Scout," Liza told Eddie. Eddie laughed. "All I did was ask Scout what kind of house she was looking for. I don't think that's against the law." "Not normal Bailey City laws," Howie said, "but I have a feeling ghouls have a different set of rules." "We have a bigger problem than ghouls in Bailey City," Eddie said seriously. "What could be worse than ghouls?" Liza whimpered. Eddie pointed at his friends and grinned. "Ghoul fools," he said with a laugh. "Vampire spiders are not something to laugh about," Howie warned. Melody nodded. "When you told Scout about Ruby Cave, she looked like she was ready to use your head as a building block," she said. "We had to save you." "The only thing you saved me from was death by shaking," Eddie laughed. "A doodle gum shake." "Eddie's head is as thick as a brick," Liza said, "because he doesn't get any of this." "Mrs. Jeepers' batty relatives have sent their ghoul to research Bailey City for the perfect bat cave," Howie explained to Eddie. "Her name is Scout, and she thinks you know exactly where that perfect vampire home is. She'll hunt you down to make you tell her about Ruby Cave." "Ruby Cave isn't a secret," Eddie argued loudly, "and I'm not afraid of ghouls, fools, or vampires." Liza slapped her hand over his mouth before he could yell any more. "I'm sure Scout would be delighted to make you her afternoon snack," she told Eddie. "But we can't let her do that." Eddie jerked away from Liza's hand. "Nothing could make Scout happy," Eddie said. Liza nodded. "I've never seen a sadder person in my whole life. I guess being a ghoul is lonely." "I'll tell you what's sad," Eddie joked. "Bailey's school kids who run away leaving perfectly delicious doodle gum shakes melting on the tables." You shouldn't make fun, Melody told Eddie. It's no fun being sad and lonely. Eddie rolled his eyes. It's no fun being surrounded by crazy kids either, but I don't see anybody feeling sorry for me. You've been grinning and laughing since you were born, Liza pointed out. Scout hasn't cracked a single smile since we met her. Melody poked Eddie in the stomach. Maybe it's Eddie's fault. Adults never smile when he's around. Eddie was good at causing trouble, and everybody knew it, especially adults. Liza giggled, but Howie didn't even smile. Instead, he slapped Eddie on the back. That's it, he said. You've given me the perfect idea. Howie didn't wait for his friends. Instead, he marched back down the sidewalk. Eddie, Melody, and Liza had to hurry to catch up. Wait a minute, Melody said. You're going the wrong way. Liza grabbed Howie's arm. We don't want to go back. Scout will get Eddie. Howie shook his head. We have to go back before it's too late. It's already too late, Eddie said. Your doodle gum shakes have melted to nothing but milk mush by now. I'm not talking about milkshakes, Howie said. I'm talking about saving Bailey City. What can we do? Liza asked. Scout is a powerful ghoul. If what you think is true, Melody added, then we should be running the other way. There's nothing 4 normal kids can do to scare away a vampire spy. You're right, Howie said. We are? Liza said in a squeaky voice. Howie nodded. Absolutely. That's why this situation calls for Operation Eddie. It was a well-known fact that Howie wanted to be a doctor when he grew up, and Eddie was sure Howie was ready to start practicing on him. Eddie took a giant step back. I don't care if you are the smartest kid in Bailey City, Eddie yelled. I'm not going to let you cut me open. I'm not going to lay a finger on you, Howie said. In fact, I'm not going to do anything. You're not making any sense, Melody complained. First you say you're ready to battle a ghoul, then you act like you're going to sit back down and pick dandelions. What's it going to be? Both, Howie said. First I'm going to help Eddie battle the ghoul, then I'm going to sit and watch. No, wait a minute, Eddie argued. I don't even believe in all this ghoul stuff. Why should I have to do the dirty work? Because, Howie explained, you came up with the idea. Eddie stood up tall and stuck out his chest. I am smart, he admitted. Then tell us your idea, Liza begged. Eddie slumped down as if he were a balloon that had just popped. I'm not exactly sure, he said. Melody laughed. Eddie's about as smart as a turnip, she said. Eddie is smart, Howie said. A smart aleck. Eddie curled his fingers into a fist. Hey, wait a minute, he said. You shouldn't call me names. Howie held up his hand. Don't get your shoelaces tied in knots. I'm glad you're funny. You are? Liza asked. Howie nodded. Thanks to Eddie, we're going to save Bailey City. Will you please tell me what you're talking about? Eddie shouted. Shh, Liza said, looking at the cemetery. Someone will hear you. Eddie rolled his eyes. I could yell all day and still not bother anyone in this cemetery. Liza giggled. I know, but it doesn't seem right to yell surrounded by graves. If you ask me, it's not right to tease your friends, Eddie said to Howie. Exactly how am I supposed to save Bailey City? Melody and Liza put their hands on their hips and looked at Howie. Yeah, Melody said. What do you have in mind? Howie peeked over his shoulder to make sure nobody else was around. All he saw were stone grave markers and a few birds pecking at the grass. Ghouls like gloom and doom, Howie told his friends. They don't like laughter, and they definitely don't like anything funny. You mean like Eddie? Melody asked. Exactly, Howie said. Maybe that's why she tried to grab him, Liza said. She tried to grab him because he knew about Ruby Cave, Howie said. I don't think she'll leave him alone until she knows all about the cave so her family can move here. I don't want some strange ice cream girl bothering me, Eddie said with a frown. Then listen to me, Howie said, and all our problems will be solved. Howie whispered his plan to his friends. Eddie shook his head several times and said, It'll never work. Howie pointed at Eddie. It has to work. Now let's get ready. We'll meet back at Burger Doodle in exactly 30 minutes. Hurry. The kids rushed home to get their supplies, and in exactly 30 minutes, Liza, Melody, and Howie stood outside Burger Doodle, each one wearing a strange outfit. Melody had a huge red nose and orange shoes. She also wore her dad's big shirt. An enormous orange tie hung around Liza's neck, and she wore a straw hat that had rubber chickens sitting on top. She also carried a plastic chicken that didn't have any feathers. Howie had his clothes on inside out, and he wore black plastic glasses with a funny nose and mustache attached. Excuse me. Where's Eddie? Melody asked. He'd better hurry, Liza said. We can't do this without him. Howie nodded toward the door. I think we're going to have to, he said, as Scout pulled open the restaurant door. Scout did not smile when the kids walked in. Come in, she said in her flat, deep voice. Would you like another shake? Melody gulped, took a deep breath, started singing, shake, 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 shake it and bake it, shake, 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 but baby don't break it. Howie and Liza danced inside the building with Melody. They sang and danced around the inside of the restaurant. Scout stared at them, but she never even cracked a smile. It's not working, Liza moaned. Try harder, Melody said. Shake, 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 shake it and bake it. The kids danced around like floppy dolls, and Liza whopped Howie with her dead chicken. Still, Scout didn't smile. But she did get closer. Closer and closer she came. Finally, she grabbed Howie's arm. Oh no, Liza cried, we're dead. The door flew open, and in jumped Eddie. It's Super Eddie, he screamed. Howie, Scout, Liza, and Melody stared at Eddie. He was naked. Well, almost naked. He had on only a pair of red polka dot swimming trunks and a red towel pinned around his neck. On his chest, a red S was drawn with lipstick. He had outlined his lips with the red lipstick and had blue eyeshadow over his eyes. Liza giggled, and Melody cracked up. Eddie, Howie said with a laugh, you look ridiculous. Eddie nodded, showing the pink flower he'd stuck on top of his head. Wasn't that the idea? Eddie asked. Only it's not working, Liza said. Eddie didn't pay any attention to Liza. He jumped on top of the nearest table, did a little dance in his big house slippers, and then pointed at Scout. Have you heard the joke about the zombie's grave? Eddie asked. Scout slowly shook her head. Oh, never mind, Eddie said. You wouldn't dig it anyway. Liza giggled, but Scout only stared. Eddie tried again. What is red, creepy, and has a red nose? Eddie asked. Scout shrugged. Eddie jumped off the table in front of Scout. Rudolph the red-nosed zombie, Eddie shouted. What's a ghost's favorite ice cream flavor? Eddie asked, dancing around behind the counter. Scout followed Eddie and shrugged her shoulders. Eddie smiled before shouting, Boo-berry! And now it's time we all had some. Eddie grabbed the chocolate syrup, held it over his head. Unfortunately, the ladle slipped, and the chocolate syrup dumped on his head. Before Scout could move, Eddie had the whipped cream hose. Eddie pushed the wrong button and the hose squirted. He fired the whipped cream like a bazooka. Whoosh! Whoosh! Liza got creamed. Melody got creamed. Howie got creamed. They all screamed and laughed. Finally, Eddie turned the hose on Scout and creamed her. Whoosh! Cream splattered her from head to her toes. How about some syrup? Eddie asked before dumping red syrup on Scout's head. Scout wiped her face and stared at Eddie. He had chocolate dripping down his head, onto his bare chest, and whipped cream on his face like a weird mustache. The corners of Scout's mouth twitched, then turned up. Then she giggled, along with Liza, Melody, and Howie. What's long, orange, and wears diapers? Eddie asked. Everyone was giggling. So Eddie answered himself. A baby carrot, he yelled, before filling his mouth with whipped cream. Then he used his hands to slap his cheeks. Whipped cream squirted everywhere, just as the outside door opened. Mrs. Jeepers walked in just in time to get her face splattered with whipped cream. When Scout took one look at Mrs. Jeepers, Scout doubled over laughing. The next day, the kids peeked inside Burgerdoodle. A teenager with pimples on his face busily wiped the counter. I thought Mrs. Jeepers would kill you yesterday, Liza whispered to Eddie. I didn't mean to squirt her. I guess I got a little carried away, Eddie said. It was an accident. You got a lot carried away, Liza told Eddie. I thought we'd never get all that mess cleaned up. At least everything turned out all right, Melody said. It's a good thing Mrs. Jeepers likes whipped cream. Liza nodded. Howie's plan worked, thanks to Eddie's silliness. I knew it would work, Howie said. Laughter is the best medicine when it comes to curing a ghoul. Melody put her hands on her hips. How did you know it would work? She asked. Howie grinned. Don't you know how to get rid of a blue monster? He asked. His three friends shrugged. Howie laughed. You cheer it up. And that is the end of Ghouls Don't Scoop Ice Cream. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you.